slot to the top of the screen, running down the seam. Montez looking the other way. That is a strike and a touchdown. The first career reception for Daniel Arias is a touchdown from 37 yards.
The 16th time in Colorado history, the first time a player has ever touched a football ends up with a touchdown. Daniel Arias scoring the first one for the Colorado Buffaloes, young receiver for the Buffs, in a 27-13 loss here in Seattle to the Washington Huskies. Hi, everybody. Voice of the Buffs, Mark Johnson, along with Gary Barnett. Welcome to the Buffalo Stampede. 2 weeks in a row, we're talking about a loss. This one's got a little different feel than one last week in L.A., though.
Yeah, it certainly does. That was a great catch, by the way, that Arias made. And I think we thought that's what this game was going to look like, is that we're going to see a lot of down-the-field throws. In reality, we didn't see very many at all. But a week ago, I think we felt like we really got beat up and maybe out-coached a little bit. You know, this week it didn't feel that way. Defense, we were in that game. Defense made plays to keep us in that game. And, you know, we just couldn't quite get it done. I think we were shorthanded with playmakers.
Yes.
And I think that showed up. Now, they were shorthanded too, but we were really shorthanded in playmakers. And in the end, I think the play of Jake Browning, the quarterback for Washington, was spectacular.
You know, one of those guys not out there today, along with Jay McIntyre, was Laviska Shenault. Gary, I think about short yardage situations, down to the goal line, where the Buffs had to settle for field goals instead of touchdowns. That's where you miss a dynamic guy like that. That's great power when he carries the ball.
Yeah, there's no question, and you don't get very many players like that very often. And so when you don't have him, then you have to design ways to make up for those yards that you're not going to get with a guy like Laviska making extra yards. And so it's you know, it's tough because you get to where you rely on him and count on him.
Yeah, he certainly was a dynamic player, but not here today. And the Buffaloes suffer their second loss in as many weeks as they're 5-2 in the season, 2-2 in Pac-12 conference play. 27-13. Being here in the Seattle area, it was good to catch up with a couple of Buffaloes at the ball game. Sefa Lufau, who's a Tacoma native, and current Seahawk Tedrick Thompson were at the contest.
Great, man. Anytime you see the boys going 5-1, it's a great start to the year. It's great that these guys are so close I can just drive up and watch them and show my support because, you know, I'm a Buff for life, baby. I want to make the Buffs part of my life. As much as I can, I want to come out and support, whether it's here or anywhere in the country. What I miss most about being a player is the connections and bonds that I formed. Those bonds are everlasting, and that's what I miss the most about football and playing for CU. Being able to play with those guys and being with them on a day-to-day basis and striving to reach goals and achieving those goals. And especially our senior year, that was one of the most memorable times of my life. And so I definitely miss all of that.
It's a blessing to be on the sideline and be out here and seeing these guys and what they're doing this year and how they playing together. So it's pretty cool to be on the sideline seeing them play. I think I just missed the atmosphere. I miss Folsom Field, and I think I just missed the guys I was around. Cheeto, Phil, Kello, just everybody that was part of the whole 4 years I was there. So I just missed the environment. You know, I learned a lot from those guys, and I still carry a lot of stuff that I learned from CU to the league, and it's going pretty well. Being a Buffalo meant a lot to me. I actually got it tattooed on my shoulder, so I learned a lot when I was there. I've been through a lot while I was there, and I'm going to be a Buff a lot.
Good to catch up with the former Buffaloes, Sefa Lufau and Tedrick Thompson. Buffs fall 27-13 to Washington here in Seattle as we continue with Gary Barnett. This defense the last couple of weeks, even though their losses, has played well enough to get the Buffs a victory, hasn't it?
Yeah, especially the front seven, Mark. And our safeties came to play today. Evan Worthington with a safety, or excuse me, with a sack, and then Nick Fisher with a strip. And also an interception, and we played particularly well there. I think we're struggling a little bit at corner, and we've got to get better at that spot. We got to get a little better up front in the offensive line, but defensively, we're getting play out of Mustafa Johnson and a bunch of guys.
Javier Edwards.
Javier Edwards is playing better. You know, Davion Taylor has been an instant success. So Drew Lewis coming around. Of course, Nate Landman's been terrific all year. Yeah.
Now this Buffaloes team has dropped 2 in a row. Here they sit at 2-2 in conference play. Coming home for homecoming next week against Oregon State. They got to right themselves, but still this is a team licking its wounds a little bit.
It is a little bit, but you know, in August, if you'd have said, let's be 5-2, you go, okay, let's do that. We got two tough road games, and they proved to be tough, just as we thought they would be, and so we've survived that. Now we're 5-2. You know, next win makes us bowl eligible, and we need that.
Yeah, without question. How did you gauge Steven Montez playing in this ballgame?
I thought Steven played pretty well. You know, you know, the pick he threw was on him, wasn't on anybody else, but he had a tough time because of protection. You know, he just didn't get a lot of protection tonight.
Yeah, that offensive line has got to continue to improve over the last 5 games.
Yeah, they're playing. They didn't play a lot of guys tonight, and they have been playing 7 or 8 guys, and they didn't play but I think 5 guys tonight, or today. So, yeah, as every position you got to get better, but they in particular do.
Yeah, the Buffaloes end up with their 2nd loss in a row as they fall 27-13 here in Seattle to the Huskies. We'll take a time out here in the Stampede. Quarterback Bobby Pesavento is going to join us. He was on the sideline during the radio broadcast. We'll get his thoughts next.
Browning facing pressure. That one gets intercepted. What a break on the ball by Nick Fisher. And Colorado's got it on the doorstep. The senior team captain returns it 30 yards, providing the big play the Buffs were looking for.
Great interception by senior safety Nick Fisher. Also had a strip in the ball game as the defensive backfield gets its 2nd interception in as many weeks. But the Buffs do fall 27-13 here in Seattle. Voice of the Buffs, Mark Johnson, Bobby Pesavento, who's on the sidelines for us during the radio broadcast. That defense is playing some pretty good football. And I've had some issues in the secondary in the corner position, but that defense is playing well enough to win right now.
They are playing really well, and give them tons of credit. I mean, they were. The scheme was good. They were there to make plays. There were some moments of lack of execution when tackles could have been made, and give Jake Browning a ton of credit. I mean, they put pressure on him, but he's so good at manipulating the pocket and moving and sliding and making plays down the field. But what we've seen the last 2 weeks out of the defense against the 2 best opponents they've played so far is promising and looks good for the remainder of this season.
Yeah, I think so. With what we're talking about with Jake Browning, I don't understand watching him because he's not the most athletic guy in the world. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's just got a way of kind of sliding in and out of dangerous areas out there.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, right? You just get it. You have this knack to feel pressure and know you can it's just a subtle movement left or right, forward or backwards, and his eyes are always down the field.
Yeah.
So, and that's the really good thing about it. He's just not making guys miss, but they're creating stuff off of it because his eyes are down the field and he's finding open receivers afterwards.
As a guy that played quarterback, that's not an easy thing to do. You're running for your life out there, and for some way he's able to keep his vision downfield and find somebody. That's a gift out there.
It really is. I mean, it's not really coachable. You can't really teach somebody how to do it. You just have the knack to do it, and you keep your eyes downfield and you feel pressure and you slide and move, and he's so good at it. He makes defenses. I mean, it's you can't really defend it.
Yeah, the Buffaloes, in fact, only got to him, had 1 sack in this ball game, but many times they had pressure on him, flush him, and just couldn't quite get a grasp of him. There's a lot of folks involved in setting up a ball game like this. Megan Muller is a senior student manager who's out there working with the equipment staff. We caught up with her getting ready for the Buffs here in Seattle.
This is the equipment room. Everything from accessories to uniforms, underneath what they wear, it's all here. We have to find a place where we can block off and have all of our trunks open, from cleats to helmet parts to gloves, accessories, and all the compression, everything that they need. You never know what they want. You have to have it all set up, and they swarm once they come in. They won't even go to their lockers first. They come straight here and then have 100 requests. Sleeves, padded sleeves, armbands, wristbands, long socks, short socks, cut compression, tights, eye black, towels. That's usually about it. They have to be able to play, so obviously safety first with their shoulder pads and helmets and make sure that's good, warm. 20-30 trunks, and we spend all week packing them. You never know, weather's always a factor, so we have to prep detached cleats for rain or cold weather gear, so it's a guessing game most of the time. We're going to come in 7 hours before the game, so today with a 12:30 kickoff, we loaded the bus at 5:30. It's very quick, not a lot of sleep, and you're always moving.
As a lot of people behind the scenes, Megan's done a great job during her educational career working with the CU football team. As we continue with Bobby Pesavento, Steven Montez was pretty sharp in this ballgame. Had a bad throw, a late pick in this contest, but overall, boy, he was competing. 2nd week in a row, he's been competing like crazy.
He's battling out there, and it hasn't been easy for him. He hasn't had the best protection today. He was missing 2 of his better targets, but I mean, he's a veteran. He gets it. He's a leader on this team, and he's still doing a really good job of protecting the football. I'd like to see him cut him loose a little bit more and really lean on him and rely on him to carry this team.
Well, there does come a time now, and a second-year starter for the Buffaloes, you become a veteran. You're a guy that is running the shot there, and yeah, let's put the thing in his hands a little bit, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's got all the tools in the world. He can make big-time throws down the field, and I just haven't seen this offense really stretch the field and use his ability and his arm, and I hope we get to see it a little more the rest of this year.
All right, next week the Buffs are home for homecoming. Oregon State coming to town. They got throttled by Cal on this given Saturday. This team's got some work to do.
They do. I think they've learned some really good lessons, though, these past 2 weeks. They've been on the road against quality opponents, and they fought hard. Tough losses, but they can take some stuff away from both these losses and build on it for the future. And guys are learning. They're being put in positions they haven't been put in before, and that only helps down the stretch. You know, 2 losses isn't bad. I think if we would have said we'd be 5-2, everybody'd be really happy. But from 5-0 to 5-2 is kind of tough to deal with. But this is where we are, and we have 5 winnable games the rest of this year to finish a really strong season.
And you got to make sure with a young team too that this doesn't hang on a little bit, because you can start to question things at some point when you lose a couple in a row.
You can, but my feelings when we were in the locker room right there, these guys know they're good, and they know they battled hard today, and they were in a winnable football game. They just came up short. So I think these are strong lessons, and these young kids are taking the positive away from it.
Yep, Buffs play some good football at home as they've got the Oregon State Beavers next week. We'll take another break here in the Buffalo Stampede. When we come back, Neil Welk of CUBuffs.com will join us.
It sets up the first career attempt for the true freshman Evan Price. Coming from 37 yards with no James Stefano. And it is right down the middle. Welcome to college football, Evan Price.
Back in the Buffalo Stampede, voice of the West, Mark Johnson, my partner in crime, Neil Welk, although he's more guilty than I am. Neil Welk at CUBuffs.com. Buffs 5-2 in the season, 2-2 in Pac-12 conference play, coming off that 27-13 loss at UW last week. Now it's homecoming with the Beavers of Oregon State coming to town. You kind of get the sense over the weekend, kind of thinking a little bit about that game in Seattle. That's one the Buffaloes let get away a little bit there, didn't they?
Yeah, that was the game that I think, they came home thinking they could have won that game.
Yeah.
That, there were some opportunities there. If they take advantage of that, it's certainly a different ball game. Not saying they should have won it, but I think they definitely had a chance to win that game. And I know that as I've been talking to players later in the week, they were they know that. They look back at the opportunities, everything from a 1st and goal at the 9 that they only get 3 points out of, a fumble recovery that gives them the ball back that stops a touchdown that they don't get anything out of, 4th down conversions by Washington, just a lot of little things added up to coming up short.
When I think about that game, I think of sustained drives, a penalty that kept a UW alive, a 4th down conversion. The way Jake Browning, and I don't know how he does it, he's able to kind of snake away from guys and keep things alive. That was kind of what I think about with that ball game. They just couldn't quite stop them when they needed to stop. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's like, one of the long throws that Browning had, the score, they are within seconds of sacking him. Yeah. Instead, he gets the throw away, and that's just the way he is. He's not fast. He's not nimble. He's none of those things, but somehow he extends plays as good as any quarterback I've seen this year.
Buffaloes were shorthanded, of course. Laviska Shenault did not play. Jay McIntyre did not play. Delrick Abrams didn't play. James Stefano, so they were down. Jace Frankie was out for the season. We knew about that. Not having Laviska out there, especially you talk about getting that interception by Nick Fisher, going 1st and goal from the 9, and not getting it in the end zone. I think they missed him in areas like that, don't you think?
Yeah, the Wildcat formation. Yep. They ran the Wildcat twice, got stuffed. Didn't get any yards on that. The 1st and goal at the 9, that's where you love to have that big receiver who can pick up just a couple of yards for you. You can throw it to him in traffic. He's going to pick it up and get that score for you. So that's where they really missed Laviska Shenault.
Nothing beats game day here at Folsom Field, but I'll tell you this, sailgating is kind of cool there on Lake Washington at Husky Stadium. We had a chance to run on down and take in some of the pregame on the water in Seattle.
We're at the CU Washington game down at the Dock D, and CU's about to play the Huskies. This is probably one of the best tailgating experiences ever. You have all the big boats and the small boats come in, and it's a very, very unique, awesome scene. I grew up in Boulder, and both my parents and my sister went to the UW. I stayed home, went to CU, and got to present CU and Buffs proudly out here in Seattle, Washington. Been a alumni, had season tickets in '77. Love my Buffaloes, and they're doing very well, and I'm very proud of them.
That tailgating is a cool deal, isn't it?
That's what you and I should do. I think that's what you and I should be doing out there.
Hey, make sure you're wearing your life preserver if you're out there tailgating, though. This week, the Buffs come back. The Beavers of Oregon State coming to town. They got throttled by Cal at home last week. This is a 1-6 football team. Listen, you don't take anything for granted in the Pac-12, but a chance for the Buffs to get some feel-good going on this weekend.
This is a chance for Colorado to get some momentum. I mean, their offense has been struggling a little bit the last couple of weeks. They're playing a team that's given up almost 48 points a game. They're playing, Oregon State has a pretty good offense. Brian Lingert's done a good job up there. but this is a chance for Colorado to get all their mojo back, get back on the right track, and get some momentum for what's a huge, key stretch down the home part of that Pac-12 schedule.
That's an interesting part of this ballgame, in fact, is Brian Lindgren coming back. He knows Darren Chiaverini very well. He knows Steven Montez very well. I'm not sure it's going to matter, but it's a factor on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, it is, because he's going to know their tendencies. He's going to know what they can do, what they can't do, and I'm sure he's talking to their defensive guys saying, hey, he's capable of doing this, but maybe not doing that. You can force him into doing this. You can force him into doing that. So I'm sure that he's giving him everything he's got on that.
And I guess from an injury standpoint, we continue to hear from the staff. It's day to day. We don't know about these guys coming back, do we?
No, no, and that's at this time of year. Injuries are just part of the game. We talked about the injuries last week at Washington. Washington didn't have Myles Gaskin either, so that was one of those things. And Oregon State, they were down to their third quarterback last week against Cal, so that's just part of the game.
Well, we hope to see you out there at Folsom Field on Saturday. Again, it's a 1 o'clock kickoff. The Buffs and the Beavers. Get your tickets at 303-49 Buffs. And you can join us in the radio broadcast, Colorado Football Network, beginning at 11 a.m. with the Buffalo Stampede pregame show. Coming up next here in the Stampede, we're talking volleyball. Head coach Jesse Mahoney joins us next.
Span will get another chance, and it's off the block out of bounds. It'll go to the Buffs. Excuse me. There's Abu following that one perfectly. Both sides really getting their block going. Ford hard off the block, and the Sun Devils cannot save it. Bump set to Kavinsky, the block by the Buffs. Yeah. There's a block.
Back in the Buffalo Stampede, talking a little volleyball with Jesse Mahoney, head coach of the Buffaloes, on voice of the Buffs, Mark Johnson. Buffs coming off a split this past week on the road, losing at Arizona, coming back getting a win in Tempe over Arizona State. Well, give us a recap of the weekend. How'd you feel about the way the Buffs played?
Well, I like the second half of it a lot better than the first. It's always tough to win on the road in this conference, and felt like we battled at Arizona, but three tight sets. Really liked how we regrouped for the next match at Arizona State, and down a set and down big in the second set, and really found a way to come back and play with some energy and get 3 straight at the end.
I've always said in sports in general, I don't care the sport, it's easy to come back, it's hard to come back and win. And so to get over that hurdle on the road is extra impressive.
Yeah, I think our players really dug deep and played with a lot of poise down the stretch, and our backs were against the wall that match, and they found a way to get it done.
Your passing game early on was not real good, was it?
That's true. Yeah. Especially on the road, it's hard to get a feel for the venue. At sea level, the ball travels a little bit differently for us, so dealing with that. I think once we got into a groove in set 2 and 3, we came out and were able to run our offense really well.
Yeah, Brenda DeLuzio out, Jenna Ewert in. How did she perform?
Jenna did a fantastic job. She's been playing 3 rotations for us most of the season. To come in and play 6 rotations, play big at the net, kind of be a freshman out there in charge. The setter's kind of the quarterback. I thought it was a really good growth experience for her, and she finished the match with a great play, a dump to end it. So
I like it. And how about Justine Spahn? She played real well for you.
Yeah, so I'm happy for Jay. She's from Arizona, Phoenix area, and she had a ton of fans in the stands, nice. And a lot of kids screaming and cheering for her. And she had a double-double with kills and digs, and really came up big for us.
I always think of these student athletes and what they do on the playing surface. They are student athletes, and one of the Buffaloes, Rachel Whipple's got a very heavy load. We followed her around recently.
I am an integrated physiology major with a leadership minor. I would say balancing my major in volleyball definitely has been a learning process, figuring out what hours of the day I need to dedicate to either volleyball or studies, or I actually get this question pretty much in all of my classes when other students find out that I am on the volleyball team. They're like, how do you do that? And it's time management is huge, and I think one thing is you can't get frustrated with if you're not playing very well on the court you still can make it up in the classroom. If you're not doing very well in the classroom, you have that volleyball outlet there. So I think they work really well together in that it's a lot of work. It's hard work, but it's very fulfilling, and I wouldn't change my major just because I was playing volleyball. The athletic department does a fantastic job of giving us resources. Sometimes tutoring can be frowned upon because you're like, oh, you're not smart, like you don't get the information, but it's really an hour of time that you can go and talk to someone who knows that information and just talk it out with them, and that's a really good way of studying, in my opinion. Our mentor, Catherine, works so hard for us and to just help us, and she just wants us to succeed as much as we can, and every time I'm there, she's like, how can I help you? And it means so much that we have a backbone, a stability to our academics that isn't gonna go away.
You know, they are student athletes, a lot of effort on the playing surface. And a lot of times fans don't think about all these student athletes you're doing in the classroom and how much work that is.
Absolutely, and Rachel's a great example of what a true student athlete is.
Yeah, without question. Nice job. All right, this weekend, back home, you got the Washington schools coming in, Washington State, Washington. You've seen them before. Give us a thought or two about what you got coming up this weekend.
Two really good teams. Saw them on the road already. Played two really tight 4-set matches, came up short. Looking forward to playing at home, obviously. Yeah. Both teams are really big at the net, really powerful, like most Pac-12 teams. Both are in the top half of the conference and both are ranked, so it'll be a fun weekend. And
I know you'd really like to have a great crowd out there. Being that it is homecoming this weekend for football, for volleyball, for everybody, see a great crowd out there cheering on the Buffaloes.
Yeah, you know, when we get a lot of fans in the seats in the convention center, our kids play better. Yeah. The energy that they bring helps our energy on the court, and I think it's going to be a fun weekend.
Yeah. Down the stretch of this season, I know you're trying to make some noise a little bit as this season comes to an end.
Yeah, you know, we're at the halfway point. We have 10 more matches. We're 4-6 in conference. Last year we're 5-5 and ended up going 7-3 in the second half. Definitely feel like we're continuing to improve, and we're going to need to do something like that in the second half for sure to do what we want to do.
I'd have to think so. Well, good luck this weekend.
All right, thank you.
All right, volleyball coach Jesse Mahoney. Friday they've got the Cougars of Washington State, and then on Sunday it's UW at the CU Event Center. Don't forget football homecoming, 1 o'clock on Saturday. Buffaloes taking on the Beavers of Oregon State. Our coverage gets underway 11 o'clock in the Colorado Football Network. As we wrap up the Buffalo Stampede this week, we'll talk to you again next week.